Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of that gang stalking show. My name is Doug, and I'm a TI, and I'm a short dude, so I gotta prop that chair up. All right, today's topic is going to be a story about remote neural monitoring. That's what I mostly get nowadays, but this is a story about RNM and some other technology that I really don't understand and have not done much research about because I don't see much out there about it. Basically what happened was the last time that I really got targeted was from August 2018 through September 2018, and it lasted about 30 days. Every day when I went to work, I'm a delivery driver, I pick up food at local restaurants. Somebody would be at a restaurant with eyes on me, staring me down, doing this, looking at me like, yeah, we're coming after you and all this other kind of BS. And there would be street theater and people acting out things. But there was a weird catch to this. There was also the one headlight routine that was done a lot. A lot of brake lights that when they hit their brakes, their brake lights would do like a strobe light and they'd go flicker really fast. Things of that nature, and but there was one aspect to it that I may have a hard time articulating this because it's a weird story. I've got Sirius radio in my car, and I listen to it as I drive throughout the day. And I used to listen to the Billy Graham channel a lot, and there is this technology that I know exists. I know this technology is real because I've read bits and pieces about it. And aside from this time, I've experienced it through, it was either V2K or RNM. And let me give you a little backstory on this. Somewhere around 2008, I was hit really bad for the first time with RNM V2K. And I actually thought that I was hallucinating, that I was having auditory hallucinations. But the thing about it is that these seemingly auditory hallucinations kept repeating themselves like it was on a loop, an audio loop. I used to work in mental hospitals as a psychiatric nurse and as a mental health tech. Worked in 2 different state hospitals in the state of Texas as a mental health tech. One of them, again, as a psychiatric medication nurse. I worked in 1 state school. I worked in a residential treatment facility for emotionally disturbed kids, and I also worked in a residential group home for profoundly mentally retarded men / with emotional issues and psychiatric diagnoses. So I've worked with a lot of people who hallucinate and have a lot of mental problems. And every time I've encountered somebody who's having auditory hallucinations, it was typically run-of-the-mill. Angels are talking to me, the devil's talking to me, or God's talking to me. It was none of this, you're reading my thoughts. It was none of this of why are you putting thoughts in my head. It was none of what people typically complain of now, which is people berating them and badgering them and talking down to them. It was, I never encountered anybody doing that, and I worked with the most profoundly, acutely ill people with psychiatric problems at this state hospital where we got them in fresh off the street. They had no medication in their system, and they were off the charts, stark raving mad. So in 2008 was the first time I thought I was having an auditory hallucination, and it was not an auditory hallucination. It was either RNM or V2K. It's kind of hard to differentiate one between the other. And part of this was using, in hindsight, I can see where the operator, they had figured out the music I listened to, figured out the things I was into, and put a spin on that and shot it back at me. I was into Metallica at the time, very heavily into Queensryche up until that time. And these are 2 metal bands. And what they did was they found the audio, I guess on YouTube or Google, of every member of each band, got their audio signatures down, and then typed up a little script, fed it to the AI program, which rendered their voices, each and every band member's voice. And it came out like this. Hey, Doug, this is Lars Ulrich from Metallica. We don't want you listening to our music anymore. Hey, Doug, this is James Hetfield from Metallica. Don't listen to us anymore. Hey, Doug, this is Kirk Hammett from Metallica, man. Don't listen to us anymore. Hey, Doug, this is Jason Newsted. I'm the bass player for Metallica. Don't listen to us. Then it would go into Queensryche. Hey, Doug, this is Jeff Tate, lead singer of Queensryche. Don't listen to us anymore. And yada, yada, yada. And when I was first experiencing them, I'm like, wow. Wow, 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 wow. This is crystal clear. And there's a few other mumbo jumbo things in there that I really don't remember. But I remember every 5 or 10 minutes, it would loop back around and they would say the same thing in the same order everything was said in. From what I witnessed in these state hospitals when people were having auditory hallucinations, like I said, angelic, demonic, spiritual, God, those type of auditory things. And I would talk to people while these things are going on, and the majority of them did not want to talk to me because they were so entranced, they were so enthralled by what was going on in their head. They're like, you can't talk to me. God's talking to me right now. Or they would totally block you out. And, if they're not harming themselves, it's not a big deal. But usually when someone goes into psychosis like that, you talk to the nurse talks to the doctor talks back to the nurse, says, hey, we want some Haldol and some Cogentin or something like that, old school psychotics. And then you would ask the patient, would you come with us to your room or to this quiet room? We're going to give you an injection, and then we're not going to lock you up or anything like that. This just help you to get through this period of auditory hallucinations. And 90% of the time they cooperate, and the other 10% they would fight. But that's the backstory on this. Let's bring this up to speed, 2018. I can't remember if this is August or September, but I do remember this, and it's crazy. This is a crazy story. So I'm listening to the radio. I listen to Billy Graham. And Billy Graham is, I hope that I can tell what he's talking about, because he was going over what the Lord does with his sheep. He was telling this biblical story that the Lord would, if there were 100 sheep out the pasture and one got lost, the Lord would go look for that one lost sheep. That's how much he loves his sheep. And he's referring to the sheep as us, as lost people. And he was talking about that, and then he was expounding upon that and the whole 9 yards. And then all of a sudden, Billy Graham turned evil. Billy Graham said, yeah, we will look for that lost sheep. If we have to get in a helicopter and fly over that undesirable lost sheep and find him and get rid of him, we will do that. And I went, oh my God, I'm driving down the road, and I'd never heard, there'd been a time or two where I heard a few seconds of something like this embedded into a commercial on TV, and my jaw dropped. But I didn't know what this stuff was back then, because I didn't even know I was a TI. I just knew that people were screwing with me, screwy things was happening in my life, and I'd never heard of gang stalking. But this time, I'm fully aware that there's a campaign going on. People are harassing me, but I didn't know they were going to hit me with this. And what they had done is they obviously knew that I was listening to Billy Graham, so they sampled his voice from online recordings. Then they typed in a script to the computer software program, and there's something about a carrier frequency. I keep hearing about this, a carrier frequency that piggybacks on to radio waves. And you can embed things into a program and superimpose them into the program and make your version of the program happen with the similar faces, the similar voices, and everything else. And that's what was happening. And where I'd heard about this from is I read online about the voice V2K being used in the first Iraq War when we invaded Iraq. There were like thousands and thousands and thousands of Iraqi soldiers out in the desert forming a line and in their tanks and carrying their weapons. And we reportedly sent V2K on a carrier wave on a radio wave, piggyback, and it said something like this in Arabic: "This is Allah. I command you to lay down your weapons and surrender to the United States of America." And all of these Iraqis, being very hyper religious, they laid down their weapons, and Americans went in there with zip ties and tied them all up. And there were so many people surrendering, they didn't have enough zip ties. But that story is out there. Just, Google it: Iraqi Desert Storm V2K carrier frequency or carrier wave piggyback V2K, and you will see that story out there. So that's what happened, and this is very weird. And like I said, I really don't know to tell you what technology this is. Now, when this began to happen, I'm driving down the road and I'm going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this is crazy. Instead of thinking, Doug, just take your recorder and record this, what's going on, and record this, have proof, I totally forgot. I said, I wonder if I change the channel and I come back, will the same program continue? The manipulated program, would it still continue with the fake Billy Graham on there? I changed the channel, I came back, and it went back to regular Billy Graham programming. So you can't sit there and go, dude, you're hallucinating, you got schizophrenia and all that. Schizophrenia, you can't change a radio channel and come back to it, and then schizophrenia says, see you later, man, you changed the channel. It doesn't work that way. So basically, I'm telling you this crazy story because I think it's interesting. And number two, I want somebody out there who knows something about remote neural monitoring and V2K and other forms of electronic harassment, who knows what this technology is that allows an operator to basically piggyback on the same channel you're listening to, and superimpose whatever audio and even video into that programming to make it seem like it's real. It sounds like the original broadcaster or the original announcer or the original actors or whatever, but it's a little off, and you can tell. And then on top of that, the tone changes from, I'm giving you a story about Christ looking for that one lost sheep, to like, Christ, I'm going to hunt down that one lost sheep, and if we have to get in a helicopter and find that undesirable one lost sheep, and then I changed the channel and came back, and it went back into the normal story of how Jesus always looks for lost people. So that's basically it. That's what I got to say. There's really not much else to talk about that. I will say that let me just throw this in for the people who have may not heard this one before, but most of you have. Another time that I experienced, I guess what was RNM, was like about a month to 6 weeks after this initial RNM in 2008, where they hit me really, really bad, and I still didn't know what targeting was. I didn't know I was a targeted individual. All I knew is I was being harassed by people I didn't know who was doing this, and I didn't know why. And to tell you the honest God's truth, I had a nervous breakdown over this because I couldn't make sense of it, and I couldn't figure anything else. But now that I know what it is, it doesn't bother me that much, because I'm like, I know what that is, not a big deal. But here's what happened. 6 weeks after this, I bowed out of nursing. I said, there's no way I can go back to work as a nurse, because if I do, they're just going to harass me again and again and again. And this is too dangerous for me to go into work, to have to take care of people with life and death issues. I've got to give them medication. I've got to do dose calculations, drug calculations. I've got to do IV drips. I've got to do drip factor conversions, micro drip versus micro drip, tubing and all this other kind of stuff. And if I make one mistake, I could potentially harm somebody. And I said, I can't do it because I couldn't go to work and keep my mind focused on work because I was being targeted, but I didn't know it was gang stalking. I didn't know why people were doing it, and it really, really screwed me up. And so I went home and I decided I'm just not going to do this anymore. And as a result, that was 2008. It's 2020. I've lost about $300,000 to $500,000 in income and lost wages because I'm no longer a nurse. And now I have to fight to get my license back because I surrendered my license under all of this V2K, R&M, harassment nonstop. I mean, I couldn't tell these people that, you know, I was being gang stalked because I didn't know what gang stalking was. So that happened with that. That's where I'm at. I'm in the process of, I've contacted the Board of Nursing. I'm like, I want to go back into nursing. I want my license back. And they're like, okay, yeah, spend about $5,000 and take these tests we want you to take, and we'll talk about it after that. A message just popped up. So that's what happened. So I'm in a position right now where I don't have $5,000 to go take these tests. I know what they want me to do. They want me to submit to a psychiatric evaluation, which I have no problem with, and they probably want to take an IQ test, which I don't have a problem with that either. I have been tested in the past 2 years with an IQ test, and what was that? It wasn't an MMPI. It was the I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a type of a personality test that could detect if you're lying, if you got any mental illness whatsoever. It detects like a whole spectrum of mental illness, and it said that it is, in my opinion, that the person who took this test was truthfully answering all the questions, and we did not pick up on any mental illness. It did list a few quirks that I have, but they're quirks. It's idiosyncratic nonsense, which everybody has, you know. I'm not going to get into that because it's of no consequence whatsoever to the test. But with that said, what was I going to say next? I was going to tell you a story about something. Oh, this is the story that I've told several times, but this is in connection with R&M and V2K. I bowed out of nursing. I had the nervous breakdown after that initial V2K episode, which it went way more in depth than just that. But after I recovered from that, I began looking for work outside of nursing. I found a job at a local Pizza Hut. I'm back in the kitchen working, and it's a typical day where I've got random thoughts going through my head, which that's me, that's you, that's all of us. And I had a few random songs going in my head. Sometimes you get a song stuck in your head and it sucks, and you're like, why do I gotta keep hearing Smoke on the Water? I hate that song. And everybody goes through that. On this particular day, I don't know why, but I had the jingle in my head of the Slinky toy. Remember the Slinky, the aluminum spring toy? And the jingle back in the 60s and 70s went like da 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 da. A Slinky, a wonderful, wonderful toy. And I had that stupid jingle in my head. I don't know why. It's in my head. I didn't particularly care for it, but it was there. It was something I remember from my childhood. So I get off work. Nobody harasses me at work. And I start walking home, and I walk about, I don't know, about 1,000 yards. And then this 1994 Nokia phone that I had, you couldn't text with this phone. You couldn't take pictures with it. All you could do is make phone calls. I mean, you could get texts, but in order to text, you would have to go AAA, DEG, you know, each individual, like, 1, you could go ABC, 2, you go DEF, and it would be complicated. it would be complicated to do. And I never cared about texting, so I never text. But I'm walking home, and all of a sudden my phone buzzes in my pocket, and I look at it, and there's a text message, and it read, "It's a Slinky." You talk about wanting to crap your pants. That blew my mind, because at the time I didn't know what targeting was, didn't know what targeted individuals were. I didn't know why I was being harassed, what the motive behind any of this was, or any of the technology. It just blew my freaking mind. But that's basically it. That's the stories that I got related to RNM. If you guys know about what happened with the Billy Graham story, man, I keep getting all these notifications on my phone. If you know what that technology is and you know about it, post about it in the comment section below. And if you got links about remote neural monitoring that you think may help me and the viewers, post those as well. But for whatever you do, don't go, "Hey guys, go Google blah, 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 blah." Just post a link to it. Don't tell us to Google anything. That's going to do it for this show. Please like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time, ladies and gentlemen.